between the three gospels that have the end time in that particular passage that Jesus is talking about in Matthew 24. So we're going to read Matthew 24, we're going to read Mark 13, and we're going to read Luke chapter 21. Listen to what they actually say. Listen to the questions. Okay, let's read them together. Matthew 24, verse 3. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, and I showed you again how that looked. The temple was down here, and on the Mount of Olives, they were on top of the mountain, and they were looking down. So they were looking down at the temple. That's the picture. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Nobody else is around. Tell us three things. When will these things be? What things? Not one stone upon another. The destruction of the buildings and the temple. What will be the sign of your coming? So that's the second thing. This is the first thing. Okay? And then they ask the third question. What is the end of the age? So three questions are asked in Matthew 24. Now watch. Here's Mark's version. Okay? So here's 2, 1, 3. Look at this. As he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, look at this. Mark named the disciples. Peter, James, John, and Andrew. Asked him privately. Tell us when, okay, here's one. When will these things be? So we have a match. That's what we have in, right here. And what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. They didn't ask him for the sign of your coming. They did not ask him for the end of the age. What did they ask him? They simply asked him about what was going to be the sign when all these things, yeah, the buildings and the temple. So they simply want to know when the things are going to be destroyed. That's what they want to know. But over here in Matthew, the disciples that came and asked him privately here, they wanted to know three things. Over here, they simply wanted to know one. All right? Let's go to Luke. Look what Luke has to say. So they asked him. Who? The disciples. Did Luke name the disciples? No. Watch. Teacher, when will these things be? Okay. Everybody asks the first question. All three Gospels had question number 1. But that's all Mark asked, or the disciples asked in the book of Mark. And what will be the sign when these things are about to take place? Do you see that? So, is Matthew out of step with Mark and Luke? Is there some discrepancy? Absolutely not. Why not? Because they're not asking the same question in Mark and Luke that they asked in Matthew. Mark and Luke have the exact same questions. Let's just look at them. Tell us when these things will be, what will be the sign when these things, same things, are about to take place. And what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled? Same questions. Now, when we go and do a comparison, Jesus gives them a little more detail than what they're looking for. So let's go do a quick comparison between Mark and Luke to see what happens. All right, now we're going to go into the Gospels, knowing that Matthew, so keep in the back of your mind, that Matthew is answering two questions that Mark and Luke have. They're not even considering those things. So when you see Jesus getting to more detail in Matthew, the reason is he's answering two additional questions. All right, now let's go to Mark and Luke, and we can close out Mark and Luke first because they are asking a different question than what's being presented in Matthew. Now, Matthew, do you know Matthew do not record the answer of the first question? Only Mark and Luke answers that. Why Matthew left it out, I have no idea, but he did not address it. Okay, so let's go Mark 13. So he says, and Jesus answered them, began to say, take heed, no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. But when you hear wars and rumors of wars, do not be troubled, for such things must happen, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be 8 earthquakes in various places. There will be famines and troubles. These are the beginning of sorrows. Now you go, why did he say that? What in the world does that have to do with the temple and the buildings? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All of this right here. Sorry. Listen, if I don't have an answer for this, all I can tell you is what it says. All of this right here have absolutely nothing to do with the question that was asked. Why did Jesus give him that answer? I have no idea. The reason, well, let me rephrase that. I do have an idea. Because each one of these are taking pieces. In other words, Mark recorded partial of the answer of the question that is asked in Matthew. And he recorded just a small piece of it simply because it was answered. But then he goes right here. Now he's answering the questions, or the question that they asked. Now, he gets right back to the first part of Acts. So this is what you see in the first part of Acts, not in Revelation. All right? But watch out for yourselves. For yourselves. Now he's talking about them. Notice the difference. He says, listen, just don't be deceived. Take heed, no one deceives you, for many shall come in my name. He didn't tell them to watch out for these things. He just said, hey, don't be deceived. But here, now he's saying, hey, you pay attention. Look out for yourselves, for they will deliver you up. He's talking to them. How do I know that? Because of this word right here. Say councils? Yes. When you look up that word, the word is actually Sanhedrin. It's Sanhedrin, friends. It's not councils. Or the council of Israel was the Sanhedrin. So that's what he's talking about. And you will be beaten where? In the synagogues. You will be brought before rulers, which they were, and kings for my sake. Now, let me go show you where this actually, where am I going? Where this actually took place. Jesus was warning them about something that would happen in the near future. So you come over here and look at what happens right here. They get arrested. As they spoke to the people, look who comes, the priests, the captain of the temple, and the Sadducees came upon them, being greatly disturbed for what they were teaching. Why? Because only the priests were allowed, according to the law, to teach people. Peter and James and John and all these folks were not, according to the law, they were not authorized by God to go and preach and teach. Only the priest was allowed to do that. So they did what? Laid hands on them, put them in custody, let's put them in jail. Okay? Then look, and it came to pass. This is the Sanhedrin I was telling you about. So the word used is the exact same word, but over in the other one, they just said it's a council. All right. So the next day, their rulers, elders, and scribes, which makes up the Sanhedrin, that's your 70, as well as Annas, the high priest, Caiaphas, and John and Alexander, and as many as were the family of the high priest were gathered together in Jerusalem, and they sat in the power and all that stuff. And Peter blasted them right and gave them that. And then, guess what? They were amazed at these guys. So they came here and they called them, commanded not to speak, and then they beat them, right? So they had threatened them, punished them, they beat them, and they let them go. All right? So that's what we see. That's exactly what Jesus told them over here in Mark. Watch out for yourselves, because they will deliver you up to the councils, to the Sanhedrin, and you will be beaten in the synagogue. That's exactly what they did. That's Acts. That's not Revelation. You will be brought before rulers and kings. Now, when did that happen? Well, they had trials for a lot of them, and they preached the gospel. I'm not talking about Paul, I'm talking about the disciples. How do I know that? Well, Herod laid hold of James and Peter. He killed James, and Peter escaped by the angels. James had a court date, and after that court date, they killed him. So, who are the rulers? Herod and the rest of them, for a testimony to them. And the gospel must be, listen to this, folks. This is amazing. You will be brought before the rulers and the kings for my name's sake. Why, God? Why are you going to allow us to go there and then you know we're going to get killed? For a testimony to them. How do you think the gospel got preached to these people? Yeah, the disciples ended up, their lives were taken. But God had a purpose and a point behind doing that. At that time. Is God doing that with people today? Probably somewhere in the world. He's probably not doing it here in America, but he's probably doing it somewhere in the world. And it's going to be a testimony to them. And the gospel must be preached to all the nations. But when they arrest you, okay, now, preached in all the nations by whom? By the disciples that's going to come after these disciples. So that's what he's talking about, the spread of the gospel. But when they arrest you and deliver you up, do not worry or premeditate what you will speak. But whatever is given to you in that hour, Peter did that. John did that. Philip did that. Stephen did that. See, this is to them today. Now brother will betray brother to death, father his child. Children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who endures till the end, the same will be saved. Friend, who's going to endure till the end? He's talking to Jews. Who's going to endure till the end? Again, you have to read the whole book. Now, right here, who's he talking about? This is another part that comes into Revelation. So he went from Revelation to Acts, and now he's back in the Revelation. This is what's going to happen in the book And the 1/3, the remnant, are the ones who's going to endure to the end.